runga, tua mai raro, te tua mai roto, te tua mai waho, ki a tau e te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, hui e, taiki e. So, Richard, do you want to start us off in terms of the update?
Yeah, sure. Before I start, I'd like to introduce Steph Deans, who's joined the team. She's filling in.
Everyone.
She's taken over from where Steve Howard was, and we'll be she'll talk about the strategy on the consent moving forward and sort of where we're at. Probably if we could. Do you want to bring the PowerPoint up, or do you want me to, Steve?
Yeah, do you mind, Richard? Thank you. I'm just having a little bit of trouble.
No,
I understand that, Steph.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I just. Okay, share. Where are we? I'm not so used to this share. Yep. Everybody see that?
Hasn't come through yet.
Okay.
Do you want me to try?
I'll try again.
Okay.
Oh no, if you're back, you get it up then. Yeah. Okay.
I'll give it a go. Says me who hasn't got it up there. Damn it. Right, bear with me. Right, can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
So I'll just do a quick preview. Can you? There you go. Steph's prepared the slide, and there's a nice picture you can sort of see in the foreground there. The construction of the MBR. Some of you have visited the site, so you sort of see the concrete structure there we talked about last time, but we'll talk a bit more about that next time. So if we flick on to the first slide, we're just briefly going to recap over the investigation. So, just in case, I think nearly all of you were at the last meeting about how we've looked at 3 more options around land contact concepts. I think everybody here was at the last meeting, so you're all quite aware. We looked at the one on the coastal side, down a gully on the Wainui Reserve, and then we looked at one which drained to the stream side, option 2, down another gully, and the idea was to do some bush rehabilitations. We'll show you the preferred option shortly. We looked at another option which was reusing and creating a wetland within the plant area. That was the option 3 down there where that yellow line is. So the preferred option, if we could go to the next slide, is option 1, and we've sort of worked away on that, and this is about the point where I hand over to Steph and she'll talk your way through. Okay, Steph?
Awesome, thanks Richard. Yeah, so all options were taken through to Tainui with Angeline as the key rep there, and option 1 really came through in the feedback as the preferred option because it keeps any kind of discharge away from the Wainui stream. It provides that land contact as it goes through the naturalised rock channel, through the gully, and then eventually reaching the sand dunes and through to the groundwater of the marine environment. So if we just flick on to the next slide, whilst none of the options that we've looked at are completely off the table, we have been focusing our energy on progressing option 1. So option 1, it does have the support of Tainui or Tainui. As I said, it avoids that discharge to the Wainui stream. It provides a long land contact, and it's feasible in the sense that the land is available. It's owned by Waikato District Council, and from a cost perspective, it's also feasible. So we've run all 3 options through a cost estimate process. We also think this site is really great for the opportunity that we have to provide some restoration and enhancement of this whole gully area. So included in that cost estimate was about $1 million to regenerate the whole gully with native planting. So overall, it's looking like a really promising and feasible solution with some added benefits that we can incorporate in as well. So if we flick on to the next slide, one of the key things is working with our Waikato District Council Open Spaces team. So Steve Howard had previously done quite a lot of engagement with the Open Spaces team when they did look at SDI on the Wainui land. So as a result of that previous engagement that Steve did, when they updated the Raglan Coastal Reserves Management Plan, it actually acknowledges that the Wainui Reserve may be used to look at for an alternative discharge solution for highly treated wastewater. So that's really helpful for us as a project in that there's been a warm up, it's been anticipated within the management plan, and this isn't a totally out of sequence option for it to happen at Wainui and at the reserve. So we've taken the option 1 concept back to the open spaces team. So our main guy there is Glenn that we're dealing with. We talked him through the option and there was no major concerns or objections, and they're quite happy to work alongside our team as we progress through with design and our technical work. But of course, most importantly is that the reserves, we protect kind of the recreational values and use of the reserve because that is its main purpose. So I think that's another positive with this option, is that currently that gully area isn't used for recreation. We know that recreation happens all around it, but our solution avoids taking away any of the recreational value and might actually enhance the look and the restoration of Wainui for people when they're using it. But we are really keen as we go through into wider community engagement to hear from the wider public on how the area is used, to make sure that we are capturing all that feedback and it's built into how we might design or progress with doing this option as well. Then if we flick on to the next slide, thank you. So we've got underway with engaging our technical assessments. So Warren Gumley has been engaged to do an archaeological assessment of the discharge site and also to look at the general corridor that we would need to do earthworks through Wainui to get the conveyance pipeline through. So Warren was recommended by Angeline as an archaeologist that's done a lot of work in this area already, and he actually did the assessment that fed into the updated coastal management plan. So he's really familiar with the sites. So Warren's heading out either in the next couple of weeks to do an initial look over and make sure that the general area, there isn't anything that we need to progress further. We're also getting our geotechnical and hydro work underway. So we're getting that done off the ranks first because we're looking at doing about 3 months of monitoring. So that's monitoring the groundwater within the area, just to see how does the hydrology work through that discharge site. So we want to make sure that if we're sending water down there, that we're not going to get ponding and it's going to filter naturally, and that the site is going to be suitable. We're also following that doing an ecological impact assessment, so that'll cover the gully but also the coastal marine area. Water quality and our public health assessments, air discharge. That's looking at the air discharge from the plant site itself, but also from the proposed discharge site. And then alongside our technical work, progressing with the concept design and then our ongoing engagement. So we do want to do quite soon a wider public engagement, so whether that's a drop-in session or something out in the community. Now that we have a solution and something that we're progressing with, we want to make sure that we're going out there and telling the story and getting some feedback. Next slide, thanks. So from a consenting strategy perspective, the next 3 months are going to be focused on that technical work, so doing the site investigations, the monitoring, and then looking at, from there, with everything going well, preparing the consent applications to be lodged early next year. So the strategy will be to consent the discharge aspects first, so that's our discharge to land and also a coastal discharge permit into the coastal marine area, and the discharges to land, and the discharges to air. Once we've secured those, then at a later date, we will come back and secure the consents that we need for the construction-related activities, for actually doing the construction side of the discharge and also the pipeline conveyance.
But Steph, just a question for you in terms of, so we've got these forums for public information. I note there's other interested members of the community who aren't on here today, but are fairly vocal in their views on what needs to occur within the area. From a public notification perspective, are we planning to do something more within the community other than this, or are we relying on the regional council's process for public notification thereafter, as far as that consent is concerned?
Yeah, no, so we're keen to do wider and more community engagement as part of this, so that ideally we're going to regional council with an application that can progress on a non-notified basis.
Yeah, thank you.
So we want to do that up front. Yeah.
So
And-
that
and-
was what Steph mentioned at open day. We were open to council's input into what shape and form that would be, Keith.
Yeah, I think I look forward to talking with the community and sort of getting this over the line with them. There's been so much work done, but I do know that there's one or two, as I say, there are one or two that we will need to work with very closely in order to get this to the next piece. Most of it will be around mitigations, to be fair. So they'll look at history and we'll want us to have answers in terms of, well, what if the UV fails? What will you do?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. What if we have to bypass the plant and just use the ponds? What will happen there?
Yep.
So,
and that's been something we've been very, very aware of. But Peter, who normally comes to these, who's our project manager on the plant, I mean, he's hopeful that he'll be commissioning the plant, and I keep asking him exactly the same questions, Keith, but he just tells me to be patient, and he has to figure out how the plant's actually going to perform and operate before he can answer those sort of. Don't worry, he gets a bit annoyed with me.
thank you.
On the upside, though, I had a meeting with Peter Crabb yesterday and the guys down at the Raglan wastewater treatment plant. He seems pretty optimistic that things, if anything, are ahead of schedule. They've had good progress down there, so he's still signalling that things are good for 2025.
Yeah, and we do have, if we keep scrolling down, we've got some updated photos of the plant. So it is looking...
Stephanie, before you
Yes.
carry on, the consents are for the land and for the CMA, which is the high water mark out to the sea. So does that mean the consent you're going for there is also the pipeline consent, the existing pipeline consent?
No, sorry. So that's with the so the discharge into the gully, because it
Yes.
eventually reaches the CMA through groundwater. We also
Okay.
need a coastal discharge permit. So
Okay.
yeah, that's just a bit of a nuance there with the consenting rules under the coastal plan and the regional plan.
And
Because there is a wetland right down the bottom of that gully, actually. So yeah.
Yes, yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
also need consents under the NES for fresh water.
Mhm.
So there's a bit of a
cons-
bundle of activities.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
Angeline, the construction one we're talking about is the pumped line up to the through the park.
Up to the reserve. Yep.
Up to
Okay.
the reserve, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so that'll need earthworks consents.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, so Peter's update was good progression on the construction. They've now finished the civil works, and you can see the plant taking shape. Not my area of expertise, Richard, anything else to add, but
I'm going to say I've seen the completed version of this in South Auckland. So Apex have just recently finished both a water treatment plant and another MBR plant, almost identical to this. And I have to say, it's the quality is fantastic in terms of what they've delivered there. And this is almost an identical sister to it. So
yeah.
And do look forward to it being in operation.
Yeah, and I think as I think Ed and Steph mentioned, I mean, this wasn't meant to be finished till mid next year, whereas Pete's pretty confident he'll have it operating near Christmas time. But there'll be a significant period of commissioning and stuff. Yeah.
Christmas time 24.
Yeah, this Christmas, yeah.
Right.
We'll
just put
6 months. He reckons he's going to get it done in 12 months rather than 18. Yeah.
We'll just put that under our pillow for the moment, eh?
Oh, he's been busy talking to Ed, hasn't he?
You won't get much sleep with the stuff under your pillow, Keith.
Sorry, Steve.
So that's our presentation, Keith. I don't know if we want to open things up.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've had some questions on the way, but is there any other burning questions that anybody's got? John, we haven't heard from you this evening. It's kind of unusual. Have you got any thoughts in terms of the way things are progressing?
Well, my only thought is that there's supposedly a coastal reserves consultation group, which the council formed after it closed down the regular meetings. So I think that's overdue for a meeting. So maybe it would be appropriate to talk to them as part of the consultation that Stephanie was talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And there's also water care is doing well on this, but not doing so well on stormwater. And there's also supposed to be a consultation committee on that meeting annually. And I think last time it only met when regional council actually applied the rules on the resource consent. And
yeah, it's a good point, John. One of the things we've done is we've gone back through all stormwater resource consents that we hold to look at obligations with the parties and communities that the stormwater interacts with, to ensure that those meetings are upheld and are a regular time. In some cases, we've noted, not particularly here, but that some of the groups that we're supposed to interact with don't exist. So where that's the case, then we'll go back to the community boards and liaise with them. But I thought we had the last stormwater one was with the Raglan Community Board. I stand to be corrected, and that was within the last 12 months. But I'll definitely go back and check, and if we're overdue, we'll make it happen.
so I thought the last one was June 2023, so it's only just over a year, but it is.
Thank you. I will double check and I'll make that happen if we are now delayed.
Yeah, we've had some issues with staffing changes to water care as far as stormwater personnel. So we've got a new guy, Basil now. Is it Basil Matthew?
Yeah.
So he's the new guy. He seems to be on the ball. I've met him at the regional council a couple of times. So I'm sure if we mention it to him, he can get something lined up.
Yeah, I'll chase it from our end. So we'll put it together in short order if that's the case.
Okay, thank you. Problem all councils seem to have with staff turnover. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not only it's turnover and then the ability to get people up to speed. And it takes a little while for those inductions and understandings to come through.
As part of the consents, do we have to inform any neighbours, or are they all too far away?
No, all too far away.
Probably the only neighbour is the Tainui Te Korpura land next door, which is Māori land. So we're quite
Okay.
happy to have it removed from the discharge point onto the reserve. So yeah.
And then there's only one point I've got, and I know it will be covered within the application process anyway, and that's just coastal erosion. Just making sure again from the perspective that we've got that aspect well and truly covered. It'll be a hot topic for council, especially with what's going on at Port Waikato. So it's front and centre, and I think as John just mentioned, the coastal consultation group will probably be pretty keen on that, understanding what that looks like as well.
So John, who's on the coastal consultation group at the moment? I used to be on those committees, but since they got rid of the reserve committee, I haven't heard a thing.
I don't think any of us have heard a thing. So in theory, it's still the same group that it ever was. But
Okay.
as I say, it's not met for, I think, September 2022 probably was when it last met.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who led that from council, John?
Well, that would have been the Parks Department, who've also changed staff. So,
okay, I will nominate Glenn. He tends to.
Yeah, I think it's probably Glenn's responsibility, but he may not know about it.
No, he will tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions in relation to the proposal that's just been given, or any other matters in relation to the wastewater treatment plant or the disposal options?
I am curious as to why we spent so long looking at the Raglan Land Company area, and this was available all along. And also, it's a very similar proposal to one that was developed for the previous resource consent when it was decided that it wasn't feasible. So I'm just wondering what's changed in those fields.
I think the main thing, John, in answering your question is that we now know what the plant effluent is, and that sort of changed it. I mean, when we were looking at SDI originally, we weren't committed to MBR in the way the sort of quality and the lack of nutrients which come out of that plant. So SDI was actually part of the treatment train as you put it in. It had nitrogen and uptake. So yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I'm also saying, multi-criteria analysis were required to undertake. So when we're looking at feasibility, and while some of them are long shots, we do have to go through and take the time to review and make sure that they are either feasible or they're not feasible. And often, because the other criticism is that council jumps straight to the solution, and the community weren't advised. So I think that in this case, whilst it's been a bit of a process, certainly the community knows what's been explored, what's been in and what's been out, and where we've landed. And I think that's kind of important. So I hear you, John, in terms of the time, and this seems to be the simplest option with the outcomes that we've got. But I don't think we would have arrived here either without going through the other parameters and understanding what the costs looked like, what the issues were that we needed to resolve, and how the community felt about the wastewater in the various elements in which it was proposed. So we're now at the sharp end. So 3 months, and we should have a draft consent ready to go. And I think that's at least now something to aim for, something to be optimistic towards. But you're right, hindsight's a great thing. Probably been a little too cautious in places, but here we are.
I recall in 20 years ago, 2004, we took Judge Shepherd up to look at the winery reserve. And at the time, our option was to put it through the wetland, which was behind the bike park, and run it through our wetland, but it had to be treated to a good standard. And of course, that wasn't happening. So it wasn't a solution at that time. Now that you've got the MBR, I think it is a solution that we can actually look at seriously. So I'm glad it's got to this stage. It's taken a long time, but thanks for keeping us on track, John.
It's good that everybody's involved now, and we all seem to be heading in the same direction. So that's promising. There's just the slight problem of the technical investigations over the next 3 months, which was in the slide you showed a while ago. So presumably you're waiting for those results, and it could all change again if those don't come up with what we all hope they will.
Let's hope not. Touch wood. All right. With that, I think we can probably give each other our evenings back. So if there's nothing else, I'll close this out with a closing karakia. And again, thank you for your input. Thank you for giving up your evening in order to be able to present or to listen and to provide with your feedback. And I'm sure well, certainly I am. Hopefully the rest of the community are. If you can get excited about a wastewater treatment plant, this is one to get excited about in terms of the real big step change that's coming and the benefit that'll provide the community. All right, so just to close us out, unihia, ki te uru tapua tāne, ki wātea, ki mama, te anako, ki wairua, ti tinana, ti hingarero, a ti ara takatū, ka ora rā I rongo, whakaera ki a runga, ki wātea, e rā ki a wātea, hui e, tai ki e. Thank you all.